Welcome to Decaf with the Beacon Center of Tennessee. Mark and I in some team gear. Well, this team's not quite playing yet, but what's the Jazz's deal right now?
Well, I mean, the Predators are playing. I mean, not well, but they are playing.
I mean, but they're not like the focus of what we're going to talk about
Oh
today. We're
yeah,
not
yes,
talking
yes,
about
yes.
hockey
And
right
the Jazz are not either, but they are still very good. We are still the best team in the NBA, so things have been going well.
Well, good for you. Alabama's about to be the best team. We'll get to March Madness
Yeah,
later,
yeah,
but
yeah. We're excited to talk about that.
I'm going to start this off saying that Alabama is going to be the best team ever. Okay, so let's talk about some serious things before we talk about the lighthearted stuff. So Mark has been, if you follow Mark on Facebook, you'll see that he has been very vocal about the stupidity of lockdowns. I don't post as much on Facebook. Mark does. It's either been about the Jazz or lockdowns for the last like 8 months. And so recently some numbers are coming in now, and they came back earlier this week and a couple weeks ago, that a lot of the states that had the strictest lockdowns had no like real noticeable difference, no substantive difference in the number of COVID cases, number of COVID deaths, whatever. Europe had the same type of results. And so it begs to question why. And okay, let me back up a little bit. I'll give people credit. This was an unprecedented time in our history. I mean, 1918 was a long time ago. No one who was making decisions then is making decisions now. I get it, when the Spanish flu happened. But why are places still under lockdown? Why are businesses still not operating if the numbers are showing that it doesn't matter, right? I mean, this is out of control. It's been over a year. Let's trust the science. Am I right?
Yeah, and it's hard to understand why the government's first idea is like, let's shut down all of what makes us successful. Let's shut down all these businesses. Like that should not be your first thing. Like, and maybe there is examples where that is warranted. I'm not sure I can think of any, but maybe if you had like this some kind of thing that was killing people immediately, I don't know. But I
Ebola.
hate it. What was that?
Like if it was like an Ebola outbreak,
Yeah,
like
like
sure,
yeah,
let's
even worse. But like, I hate the idea that they think the first thing that they should do is shut down these businesses. That's an awful like first, and of course that kind of goes more to the heart of kind of what the left believes. Like that's the first thing instead of saying like let's make sure we have all the numbers and then figure out what to do. But like you said, I agree. I understand why people shut places down. I didn't agree from the beginning, but I understand the theory. At this point, there's absolutely no excuse. And like we talked about, Joe Biden calling Florida Neanderthals or whatever. And that's insane. It's absolutely insane. And we have all these numbers, and basically the numbers are exactly the same, whether you shut down or not. So these states like Tennessee, Florida, that have allowed businesses to stay open, that have, not seen their economy crash and burn. Not that it matters because the Democrats got a bunch of money, Democratic run states in the stimulus anyway, who shut down. But you see these states that have done well. You see Sweden has been exactly the same as the rest of Europe. These shutdowns don't work. They did nothing.
I
And
know.
if they had an impact, it was minimal. And it's just hard to justify now. And like you said, we now have numbers. This is not no longer like an unprecedented. We have no idea. We know it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what happens. It does matter if you send them into nursing homes to kill people, but other than that, it doesn't actually matter whether we have these kind of government shutdowns or not.
I know, and I think that the virtue signaling coming from the left, I will say, I think that the far left and the far right are both wrong. I think that the far right completely disregarding the COVID exists and thinking that masks should not be worn ever
That's
is.
not the far right. That those are conspiracy theorists. And I
That's
mean,
what
yes,
yeah,
they do have to be more on the right, but that even the
yes.
far right, I think, would say that we don't want government. But I do think it exists.
And then the far left that's saying we're still all going to die, you're going to kill grandma, whatever.
That's not the far left. That is the entire left. You don't have to be far left anymore. This is like the mainstream left, which I think is the problem. It's not just the crazies. It's the people who are actually like mainstream Democrats believe this.
But then there's the elected officials in the middle that we say this a lot, rules for me, but not for thee. John Kerry this week on the airplane with his mask off.
Is
And
John Kerry in the middle?
well, I'm just saying he's like
Maybe compared to the current Democratic Party,
yeah,
but yes,
one of the
not sure.
high and mighties, one of the
Yeah.
people who's like would guilt people if given the chance, but identifies on the left, but he goes on this airplane and doesn't wear a mask. And Gavin Newsom, who's going to restaurants, and Cuomo, who what is he even doing?
He's in some bigger trouble than that. But I mean, also the John Kerry thing. this is also the guy who's got a private jet telling us about carbon emissions. Like, give me a break.
I know, but it all goes back to rules for thee, but not for me. And so I think it's getting a little bit ridiculous that we're being told, not we, but California, New York, whatever, the more liberal states and cities are being told that they have to stay shut down or they're still going to kill grandma. Or they have to get a vaccine, where we're seeing numbers from the whole year of people not vaccinated, still being careful, businesses open, and everything is exactly the same as it is in the other states. And so I think
I personally, I think we should get vaccines. I mean, I don't think anybody should be forced to. But the one thing that I know that you're the only person I think in the world that actually watched the Grammys, it appears, by their ratings. But I saw these pictures of, all the performers being close to each other without masks, and there's no issue with that, even though it's officially against California state law. Like, it's fine for celebrities. Again, rules like they don't have to follow the rules. But if you walk outside, you get like $1,000 fine for not having a mask in California.
I know. When we were in Breckenridge in Colorado earlier this January, because obviously I've traveled a lot during the pandemic, and actually I follow a matchmaker on Instagram, and she did a poll about like, if someone travels for pleasure during a pandemic, is it a deal breaker or not? And 86% of the people said yes. And I was like, well, that explains why I'm single, I guess. But
I feel I think I'd say 86. I would say if they're afraid to travel at all, that would be a deal breaker for me.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Hence, I went to Breckenridge during the pandemic. And if you walked around on the sidewalk outside without a mask on, you could get like a massive fine. And it's become ridiculous. I do wear my mask. I'm not here waging a war against masks. I'm waging a war against like inconsistencies and not actually listening to what the numbers of things that have actually happened over the last year have said. And so I think that if we did an eye roll count for me over the last few months, we would have hundreds of me rolling my eyes at the notion that trusting the science, but the science actually not being trusted. So
I actually kind of wish we do a highlight reel of things we've said, because we've been, we're wrong a lot, but we've been right the entire time on this from the start. Where if you go back, it's like, wow, we were right about 9 months in advance of everyone else. But we have been. And sometimes I go back to my sports picks. I'm like, oh man, I can't believe I said that. Like, but for this COVID one, we've been right the whole time.
We've been on it. We know what's going on. So I just think we should look carefully. And if you do live in one of those more liberal states, liberal cities, I think it's really time to hold your elected officials accountable and say, hey, listen up. We know what's going on here, and there's no reason why we shouldn't be allowed to go to a restaurant at this stage in the game.
Can I add one more thing just about the Grammys? And it's not related to anything. I just need to say it. Trevor Noah is not funny. I don't know who thinks he's funny. I see an ad for him on the right side of my screen. I know he did the Grammys. He is the least funny person on television. I thought John Oliver, I don't agree with him. He was funny. Jon Stewart's funny. Like, I don't get why people like him.
Trevor Noah is also the least handsome of all of them. Like,
he dates the girl from Friday Night Lights, though.
Doesn't make sense.
He must have a great personality, because he is not funny.
Yeah, and he's not cute either. So something's going on. I don't
know. I can't stand the guy. I feel like he is the most overrated person in the history of Hollywood.
Agreed. And it was even more awkward because there was no audience. And so he would make jokes and no one would laugh. But like,
he's got to be used to that by now. Exactly. I'm sure it's the same as when he goes anywhere.
That's what I was going to say too. Yikes. We were being so mean. But I totally agree.
Can we cancel Trevor Noah because he's not funny? I don't care about anything he said, but we need to cancel people who aren't funny.
That's what I can get on board with canceling. If you're just like not good at your job, just get out of here. Like, canceled. Like, he gets paid for being funny and he's not. I wish I could.
He makes like $12 million a year. He is awful. And that's when you're like, I love capitalism. Like, how does this guy make $12 million a year?
Gosh, I love a good roast of a celebrity that we both agree that we can't stand. So let's move on to something also exciting having to do with celebrities. Nashville is healing. Tennessee is healing. There are bachelorette parties out on Broadway. I saw a bachelor party walking through the nations recently. The city is healing. And another way that we know it's healing is celebrities are opening up restaurants in Nashville. And that happens a lot. You've got all the bars on Broadway that are celebrity owned. You've got Jason and Brittany Aldean have a steakhouse. Miranda Lambert just opened a restaurant that Mark and I went to the other day for lunch at 5th and Broadway.
What's it called?
Blanco.
It was very good.
It was so good. Justin Timberlake is opening a restaurant, and I just feel like, the last year's really gotten us down economically, but things are healing, and we'll take it. And I think that it's also going to make an argument, and I'll kind of toss this over to you, Mark. But after a year of not really seeing business owners able to spend where they want to, not have the discretionary income to open new businesses, now there's a huge incentive to open new businesses because people want new places to go. People are actually going out and spending their money again. And even though we hate what corporate welfare has done, I hope that what they did at Fifth and Broadway launches even more businesses downtown and kind of makes an argument for, like, all of these other businesses are opening without tax incentives. Maybe we should just cut it all together.
Yeah, and I mean, and also rent's cheaper because people are fleeing downtown, so it is a great
Right.
opportunity for the business. The one issue I had with Nashville coming back, which I mean is great generally, but I walked outside my apartment and saw throw up 2 days in a row. I'm like, oh, okay, it's back now. There's somebody threw up outside my apartment, so that you can tell Nashville's back.
Oh my
It
God.
was super gross. Sloan tried to eat it, so I
Oh
stopped.
my God.
I know, but no, it's really cool. I mean, we went to Fifth and Broadway, and I mean, I fought against their corporate welfare subsidy. It's still the worst thing. It's an awful thing. We should not have done that. It doesn't make it not cool. I mean, it's a really cool thing. I mean, there's a lot of good local restaurants. It's supposedly the biggest food hall in the country. I don't know how they measure that. I don't know what's considered a food hall. It sounds like it's kind of a made up, like biggest or number one Chinese restaurant. Maybe not exactly right.
Like an elf when he sees the neon sign says world's best coffee and he walks in and congratulates them on the world's best coffee.
Yes,
Like, is that
exactly.
what we're
Yeah, and I'm
dealing
not
with
sure,
here?
but I mean, maybe I'm sure they use some weird measurement to do that, but it's cool. And it's cool. Like another thing, the SEC tournament was back, only 20% capacity. I know you went to it,
I went.
but I mean, it's cool to have these events back there. And they went to the Fifth and Broadway afterwards. And we're just seeing a lot of cool things happening in Nashville. I think around Tennessee, where it is, we're not back to normal yet. But I think we're a lot closer, and I don't think we have to settle for that new normal as we're going to be wearing masks for 4 years. Like, look at Nashville, and we are really coming back. And I hope kind of by the summer, especially when a lot of people are vaccinated, we can kind of, take the masks off and just kind of feel like it's a normal life at 100% capacity. I mean, that's what I'm looking forward to.
I know I think I'm in the phase right now where it's kind of alarming to see people without masks, but at the same time, I went to a coffee shop in Williamson County the other day and I forgot a mask. And so I just kind of went in without it and nobody said anything. Like they have lifted their mask mandate. And I just kind of went in, I grabbed my coffee because I'd ordered online and sat down. And it felt kind of normal, even though when I walked in, it was a little weird to have like my naked face, like without a mask on, walking into this coffee shop. But I think things are getting somewhat back to normal. I know my mom, my sister, and my grandmother have all been vaccinated. And so people
How'd your
are.
sister get vaccinated? Isn't she like 18?
She's 23 and she works with elderly patients as a speech pathologist. So
Can I tell you one of the best things? My friend Monty, who was like, I mean, he's like a normal guy, and he's like, oh man, I was really close to the BMI to get, like, I guess if you have a 25 BMI, you get the shot. He's like, man, I just had a bunch of fast food a couple of days before and I hit exactly 25 on the dot, so I can get a shot early. I'm like, that's pretty hilarious.
At, like, you get the shot, like, at what cost?
Well, I mean, he got to enjoy fast food too. That's a win. I'm sure he's not feeling great after it, but it's just funny that he did that. And obviously there's these kind of areas of people who get this shot. I mean, honestly, with my heart issues, I should see if I could qualify for it early, but I don't think I'm quite there yet. But it is cool, and I think, I mean, obviously, people have different opinions. I am certain to get the vaccine the first chance I can now.
I you know me, I'm not quite there yet, but
you want to wait. Yeah, you want to wait to see. I got you.
I want to wait and see, but people are getting it, and I think that the faster that we can either, people are getting the vaccine or herd immunity, or people are just understanding that this is what life is going to look like now. We're going to have to be careful the faster things can open back up. And I am excited. One good thing that has come out of the pandemic, though, as I scrambled this morning to get all my tax documents collected, is that the IRS has pushed back the tax deadline to May 17th. And I didn't even know that. And I'm like scrambling this morning before we talked to our accountant. But the IRS is pushed back to May 17th. So whereas we would normally just have like less than a month left to get all of our tax stuff in, we have 2 months now, which, I hate the IRS. I think that any red-blooded American probably does. I'm probably now put on a list for that. But what I think is interesting is people's interpretation of, I hear this a lot and I get really frustrated when people are like, man, I didn't get anything back in my tax return. And it's like, well, that means the government wasn't holding on to your money to begin with. And I think there's just like this huge, especially among our generation, this huge like misunderstanding of what your tax return is. And even outside of our generation, the now Vice President Kamala Harris in 2019, after the Trump tax cut passed, she tweeted out about how she's tweeted something about how tax returns were lower that year than they had been any other year. And people were quick to point out that if the tax returns were lower, that means that the government wasn't holding on. They basically get an interest-free loan. What a tax return means is that you've been giving the government an interest-free loan, and then they're like, "Oh wait, you deserve this money back that you've been living for a year without."
Right.
And so it's really frustrating for me. And I love getting tax returns just as much as anyone because it's like it's like a shopping spree that you weren't expecting. But it is frustrating when you get back. I mean, one year I got back over $700. And I'm like, that could have, I mean, that's over a month's rent for me. Like
Yeah.
that could have been put towards something else. And so I think when we view taxes and we view tax return season, we need to view it through an accurate lens, which is that if you do get a tax return back, it's not a reason to celebrate necessarily. It's a reason to say, why on earth was the government getting an interest-free loan from me for all these months?
I know. And that's part of the, I mean, that is just part of this issue that we have. And actually my friend Sam, who Sam Cosby, actually used to work at Beacon. He had like the best idea, I think, where he just said, you know what? I think there might be a country that does is like, you should not pay taxes all year, and you should have to write one big check at the end so that you understand exactly how much of your money is going to the government.
Yeah.
Because like people are like, oh yeah, I got money back, I feel good about it. It's like, I mean, that's on purpose. They want you to do that. If you had to write a check for, $16, $15, $20,000 at the end of the year, you're like, oh my God, that's 25% of my income. I can't believe I have to write a check.
A lot of money. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And it's hard to, I mean, I think that would be a beneficial thing for people to understand exactly how much they take from us. Because I think a lot of people, they don't look at the paycheck. They don't look at the specific things. They're like, oh, this is how much I get in my paycheck. They don't say, oh, this is how much is taken out for this, this, and this.
I know a lot of freelancers really hate the government for that reason, because freelancers and contract workers, like my friends who are music producers or photographers that have their own business, they have to save a certain amount of money every year for taxes and then pay this like gigantic lump sum because
Yep.
their income doesn't take it out and they're quicker to hate the government. So for everyone out there who wants to paint a picture for your friends about why we don't love government, talk to them about the lump sum of taxes and ask them how much. Look at your, like, I'm sitting here on my W-2 and I'm looking at what I paid last year, like the number that I paid last year, the things I could do with that money, man.
I wish you could see
spend it
exactly
so
what your
much
money
more.
goes to, like, oh, this went to this specific stupid project. I mean, hell, most of it's just going to the debt that we owe. So, I mean, even that, but I mean, it's so infuriating when you actually look at it. And I do think that there's a lot of people who might be center left who, if they did that, they might feel differently about their taxes.
I know. I think that a lot of people would feel differently about taxes if you fully grasped exactly exactly what where your taxes are going, or how much you're paying in them. It's
Yeah.
so frustrating. You know what I could do with my taxes if I like this number, right? I can't even look at it. It makes me feel sick. What I could do with my taxes is I could put it on my March Madness bets
Oh,
and
there you go.
probably double, triple, quadruple the amount of money, because I bet on Alabama. I got two brackets. So I started a league with my friends, and
By the
each
way, I wasn't invited to this league, so I guess that we're really
yeah, we're really cracking down. No
man.
riffraff around here. No riffraff. We started this league, and you get two brackets, and we're not putting any money in, but whoever has the worst bracket um has to make dinner for everybody else. So it's kind of like a fun, just like friendship, whatever thing. But I have two brackets. One of them I mostly picked the higher ranked team, except for a few teams that I had a lot of faith in that I think could pull the upset. But on both of them, and then on the other bracket, I picked mostly the underdogs in each pairing. But on each one, I always took Alabama straight to the top. Sorry about it.
Okay. Well, I mean, I
A
feel
bold
like
strategy.
I made a lot of money last week betting on the
Yeah.
conference tournaments. Georgetown and Oregon State both pulled huge upsets to get automatic bids, and that was great for my bank account.
Yes.
So I filled my
Mark owes me
bracket.
lunch.
Yeah, I'm so excited about this, and I actually don't have a great feeling of who's going to win. I mean, Gonzaga's the big favorite. I think I like Baylor a little bit,
Mhm.
but there's some really great first round upsets if you're feeling like your bracket and you want to look smart to your friends, or really dumb if it doesn't happen. The Colgate over Arkansas one is the upset I love so much. I've been talking about Colgate for a while. I think Arkansas is vulnerable to that, and I think that's a tough one.
I mean, I saw them play in the SEC championship last week, and those boys, they either had tired legs or they're not as good as they think they are.
Yeah, I mean, they're a good team, but yeah, I don't trust them. I think that, I mean, Colgate leads the NCAA in the least amount of turnovers, and they shoot a great percentage from the 3-point line. So that's tough to compare with. We talked about Morehead State. I think West Virginia's going to have a big problem with that. And then my big upset, this one nobody's talking about, okay? Abilene Christian over Texas. Abilene Christian is actually one of the best mid-majors to come out in the last 10 years. Nobody's really paying attention to them. They play fast. They play good defense. They get more turnovers, I think, per possession than anybody in the country. And Texas is going to have their hands full with that pressing Abilene Christian defense. So those are my ones. And then my one upset Final Four team. I'm not saying they're going to make it, but if you're looking for a team, St. Bonaventure is a really tough 9 seed. That's going to be a team to watch out for. They have a lot of good players, defensive player of the year in the A10, and they play some really strong defense too. So that's where I'm at. I'm sure I'll be wrong about all of these, but that's what I'm going to stick with. Well, honestly, if one of those win out of the 3 I said, you would win a lot of money in Vegas. Just 1 out of 3.
I know. I need to get back on my DraftKings game.
Yeah, that's right.
Mark did win me like $300 one year. I called him when I was living in Alabama, and he helped me fill out my bracket, and he really helped me out. I got second place in the league that I was in, which was just like absolutely huge.
I'll send you my bets if you want them to.
Yes, St. Bonaventure, I have them getting out, I think in the 16. I did pick them.
Okay, good. Yeah. I think a lot of people are thinking LSU's a better team. Like, I don't think so. Bonaventure's been good all year. I know. And it's that's one of those teams that nobody really knows who they are, so they're kind of underestimated, but they are very good.
I mean, that's the great thing about basketball. And we talk about this with football a lot, and how we wish that more smaller teams could get into the football playoffs. That's the fun thing about basketball, is that so many teams get a chance. And so tomorrow, Mark's going to take off and watch March Madness. I'm just going to have it on my TV all day, all weekend. I'm just not, it's going to be, this is what we live for. This is the season where things get really fun. This is what we live for.
And there's so many cool, they always do these cool storylines too. Like, you have Rick Pitino back in action versus Alabama in the first round with Iona. One of the cool, Sister Jean, who has won so many people's hearts, is going to be there again. And there's a potential second round matchup with Loyola and Illinois, which, I mean, they're both in the same state, and they're kind of rivals. And Illinois has apparently not scheduled them in 20 years, because they don't want to play them. So it's gonna be a fun it could be a second round matchup there.
On my underdog bracket, I have Loyola beating Illinois.
I have that on my normal bracket, so I think we're on the same page there.
Really? Oh my God.
I like that Loyola team a lot. Ron's not happy because I have them also beating Georgia Tech in the first round, but I do believe they can do it.
I have Georgia Tech winning in the first round for one of my brackets. But
they just lost the ACC Player of the Year. He has COVID, so he will not be playing. So
I know, that's why I think my second bracket is going to be the winner. I did some easy picks on my first bracket, but my second bracket was my gut bracket, which is a lot of underdogs taking over the higher ranked seeds. So we'll see what happens there. But we'll be back next week to talk about this a little bit more, and hopefully we're both a little bit richer off our bets.
Perfect.
Have a great weekend, everyone.